to go over what this class will be like online. We're currently planning for normal school to not be in session until April 14th. If that changes and we continue with online school, you and your families will be notified by Mr. Calandro. For the purpose of this class, we will spend the rest of this week on ending our unit on government. To do that, we will have a review day today, and we'll have an assessment that is split into two parts, one on Thursday and the second on Friday. For this assessment, and pretty much everything we'll be doing, I will be posting through Google Classroom. If you have specific questions, send me an email. I will get back to you quickly. The speed of my response will vary, but if you send me an email during school times, as in between 8 and 3, I will be especially fast at getting a response back to you. We've talked about these pictures multiple times over, but we've done so for a good reason. The group of colonists that settle on the Atlantic coast settle in different spaces geographically, and their goals in settling are different from their outset. When these groups declare themselves independent, their differences yield groups that do not really trust each other, nor do they think of themselves as unified. They found common cause in not liking being ruled by England and their war for independence, but beyond that, they're more loyal to their towns, states, and regions. Because of this, the government that they initially set up during their war for independence limited the ability of any state to assert too much power over others. This government was organized under a set of laws called the Articles of Confederation, and it ultimately failed. There was a sudden realization that this government was too weak when a group of Revolutionary War soldiers in Massachusetts were being paid with currency that was going down in value. In their frustration with their government, they started rioting and attacking state houses. Because this government is purposefully weak, and it could not force states to come help stop the rebellion, in this moment of crisis, there is a realization that a stronger government needs to be created. Despite the failures of the Articles of Confederation, we discussed as a class that as historians, this set of laws offers us some insights into what this group of newly independent Americans wanted. They agreed to plans for how to organize new territory. They made specific plans to divide these territories into grids with sections set aside for community buildings and schools. In this sense, we see a continuation of the call from John Winthrop's sermon that called for people to work together in order for them to be successful 150 years earlier. So they come back together, representatives of 13 different colonies that do not trust each other and think of themselves as loosely connected. They know they need to do something or this whole independence effort could collapse. Yet, because they do not trust any one group or individual, they create complicated systems with lots of checks and limits of power on each group. The most telling example of this debate is surrounding representation. Will Congress be based on states' population, or will each state get the same number? Though complicated, they decided to do both to make all these states feel like they have something to gain. With 3 branches of government organized into a 2-part legislative branch with a House and a Senate, an executive branch with a president, and a 9-justice Supreme Court, they also create a complicated system for sharing power between states and the now stronger federal government. They create this constitution, and it spends 3 chapters, technically known as articles, writing out rules for each one of these branches. They then spend a chapter explaining how these states will interact with one another. They spend a chapter explaining how the Constitution can be changed going forward. They spend a chapter assuring people that the money that the first government they had under the Articles of Confederation will still pay off its debts to banks and veterans. And they conclude with a final chapter talking about how this document will be made official. With all 7 of these chapters complete, people and the rights of individuals are not protected or guaranteed. It will take the first 10 amendments of the Constitution to ensure these rights, and ultimately the Constitution becomes the systems of laws for the United States with these changes. To continue this review, move to the second video.